As a new mum, there is lots of things that we need to be thinking about. We're trying to manage our baby, our new baby, trying to work them out, trying to work yourself out. If you have other kids, you're trying to juggle your other kids. If you've got a partner, you're juggling your partner and everything else. And generally, you are the last person that you think about. Generally, lots of mums put themselves last. So it is really important to try not to do that, but we want to think about what can you do in the time that you have to help yourself repair. It is important to think about rebuilding our core strength. It is something I'm really passionate about, and when I had my babies, I prioritized rebuilding my core strength because I'd seen so many mums who hadn't spent the time doing that. I'd seen them with lots of other problems, back pain, pelvic floor problems, and then feeling like they can't keep up with their kids or they can't do the things because they have this weakness. And it is definitely something that you can make a massive difference in changing without taking over your whole life. There is no right time to come back. It really does depend on how you feel. It is recommended to wait a minimum of 6 weeks, and you do need to get a clearance from your doctor to return back to exercise. So that's the first thing. So I've seen many mums, and even in my experience, that I asked my doctor and they just went, yeah, whatever, and you can go back, but that's not how it should be. Okay. It should be about you thinking about how does your body feel and where is it at? Where is your body at before you return to exercise? I don't want you rushing back and trying to be the person you were before you had your kids, because your body has changed since then. My body was stronger since I had children because I've rebuilt it, and I've really grown my strength. So, there's lots of people that told me before I had kids that you'll never be the same, that you'll never be the same and that you're weaker, you'll never get your body back, all of those silly things, but it is further from the truth. I'm going to talk about today is what you can do in the immediate time when you're coming home from hospital and you just want to think about. So when we think about, to help yourself feel better. So when we think about our core, when we are pregnant, our tummy has to stretch. Now, depending on your height, so depending on, so taller people tend to, or maybe, if you've got a longer torso, you might not get as much of a separation and it might come back, but it is a really, really important thing to check and to get checked over by a women's physio. Now, your tummy, if you are shorter, there's less room this way. If you've got a shorter torso, so your tummy's got to go out, which means more inclined it's likely to separate. So what I've had is, when I've been training different mums over the years, I've had mums that their tummies have separated pretty much very early in the stages, and we've worked the whole pregnancy to maintain that separation, to not let it get any bigger. So what we want to do is in the days, the weeks, the months after you've had birth, is help bring your core back together. So your core has to separate. There's, it is normal. It is meant to happen. It's got to separate to allow room for your baby in there. But we want to help bring it back together and bring it back together stronger than what it ever was before. So the things that we would be focusing on is you'd be looking at strengthening your transverse abdominals. Now, these are the very, very bottom layer of abdominals. They connect to your pelvic floor, and it's what I find most people ignore because you can't see them. They just think about this rectus abdominis, which you can see, which is your visual, and that's what people focus on. But we get the bottom layer right. You're starting from the bottom, and then everything else falls into place a lot easier. So when those those times until you feel ready to exercise, remember, it is no right or wrong. It is whenever it feels right for you, that is your time to return. It doesn't matter what textbooks say, what people say, but do give your body, you definitely need those first few weeks. I remember when I first had Charlie, I couldn't even walk to the end of my street. I was like, but again, it took time, and then I, got back walking to the street soon. So what we're going to do is we're going to think about the things you can do to help rebuild that core strength. So what I would recommend in those times is just think about bracing your core. So when we switch our core on, we need to switch it on from our pelvic floor first. Okay, so we've got to think about switching on the pelvic floor. Now those transverse abdominals that we were talking about, they are like a corset, that corset around. They go all the way to your front and to your back. So we want to think about tightening that corset. So we want to imagine you're going to pull on your pelvic floor and we're going to tighten that corset and pull that in nice and tight. And you're going to hold all of this in while you're breathing out. Now that's something that you can do while you're standing, sitting, laying down, any of those things. So that's the first thing that I would really focus on, is just that bracing. The other thing I would recommend is to just do a few basic stretches. And generally, but lots of mums that I've trained tend to get a sore back. We're in this hunched position, whether we're feeding or picking up, we tend to be. So what I would do is just do some stretches to open your back up. And what I found comparing my first pregnancy to my second pregnancy is that my first child to my second child, is that with Cooper, I did no stretches because I was so scared. I didn't want to, like if he fell asleep and I was like this, I would just stay in an uncomfortable position because I didn't want to wake him up. What I found is, so I didn't really stretch and I did get a sore lower back. With Charlie, what I did is I stretched after each time she fed. So I would just do a cat and cow. So on all fours, up and down, I would do a cat and cow, or I would do, like a back opener, any of those little things, side stretch like this. So any of those kind of three, so cat and cow, a back opener, so we're just opening up this way. You can do it on all fours or standing, and then a little side stretch. So any of them, I tried to add that in after I fed her. I tagged it with feeding her because I knew I was more inclined to do it, and I didn't get any back pain. So that's the two things that you can do to start off with until you feel ready to return back to exercise. And we want to work on connecting your pelvic floor and your core and bringing that corset back in. So make sure you try that. And for more information, check out my YouTube channel.